Hello everybody and welcome to the stream. Thank you, Colin. You can go away now. And I still have technical problems. I will get there one day. So the audio was a bit odd there because it wasn't playing the audio off my computer. It was playing through my microphone. Anyway, we'll get there. Now we are on both Twitch and YouTube. So whether you're joining us on YouTube or you are joining us on Twitch, either way, I appreciate your presence. I enjoy your company greatly. Over the next 2 hours, we've got so much to talk about, so much to discuss, and more importantly, your questions, your answers, and your thoughts on your tabletop games. We're going to be going through that. So post them up. Please remember just to put in big, bold question for me. I've got the chat coming through both from Twitch and from YouTube, courtesy of the Restream software that I'm using. So I will be watching those, but I do forget them. So if I don't hit them, please just say, repeat it again, and I will come to it. So we've got a whole bunch of things to do, and we have a new card, which obviously, yes, I forgot to prepare beforehand. Why? Because I was recording this week's campaign creator video, and I got so into the recording that I completely forgot about the time. So there is that. I've got some other confessions that are going to come up later on in the show. But for now, let's have a look. I have created a new overlay, a new look, I suppose you could call it. And it's our topics, what we're going to be looking at in the show today, as well as all sorts of other things. So let's have a look and see what we can see. So first up, here are our topics list. I actually need to move this somewhere so I don't have to look so far away. Let's do that. So YouTube videos to watch. What YouTube videos are we going to go through? I'm glad for your subscription. Thank you. The only problem that I have with watching this is I can't see when people subscribe. Game Master's Vault, thank you for that subscription. I'm going to have to look at that. Eric, I see you are warning me that everything I say can and will be used against me both on Twitch and YouTube. Yes, that's correct. It shares for both of those viewers. If you like and prefer watching on YouTube, that's great. If you prefer watching on Twitch, that's great too. And if there are any other platforms that you want me to stream on, I'm happy to do it. It's amazing the technology we have today. So back to our discussion as to what is going on. We are looking at the topics list. So the topics are, YouTube videos to watch. If this is your first GM Sessions video that you are catching for the first time, firstly, welcome and glad to have you here. Secondly, we're going to go through some YouTube videos. So what I do is during the course of the week, I watch other YouTubers, I look at their videos, all about role-playing, of course, usually, and then we discuss them. There is XP awards available for those who find the links to the videos that I talk about. I will confess this week I did watch videos, but I forgot to write them down, so I might be a bit vague on that. However, we're going to be talking about Matthew Colville's new Twitch stream and YouTube. Well, like everybody, we stream everywhere. We're going to look at and talk about his session that he ran for the first time this week, his new campaign that's kicked off, because I think there's some interesting things that came out of that and something worth talking about. That's me personally. And again, if you don't like the topics, just say, oh, move on, boring, we're not interested, because this is about me interacting with you, and if you don't want to talk about it, off you can go. So there we go. I see there's some questions coming through. There's people from Pennsylvania. Hello, Pennsylvania. My US geography is not great, but I don't think you're being affected by that vortex from the north. I think that's such an interesting thing about geography that we can add into our games. Imagine if your players are trying to defeat a dragon and the next minute the druids all come running down going, whoa, it is the end, the weather, the weather, the weather, the weather. We're about to have a polar vortex. I think that's absolutely wonderful. There's some voting going on in terms of a character named Clyde the Kobold. I think that could be interesting. Anyway, all sorts of other things coming through. So let's carry on with this topics quickly. We do a creative writing development session where I give you a creative writing task that I used to give out to my students when I was a lecturer in script writing. It helps in terms of all kinds of things, but specifically it helps you as a player or as a GM to just develop and look at things from a different perspective and make your everyday life that much more interesting, and to help, of course, improve your creative processes. I do a review for those of you that are interested. Usually it's towards the end of the show. I do a review of my role-playing sessions, what I planned and what went wrong, and that's specifically for the Kharos Stones. Now, the Kharos Stones are a game that I run on the Save or Dice YouTube, Twitch channel. I don't know how we call these things anymore. It's just the channel. I mean, they're on everything nowadays. So if anyone knows, let me know. 3 inches of snow. I wish for snow. I know I shouldn't, because I know it's horrible stuff once you have it, but I do wish for snow. It's one of my personal bucket list things, is to be able to jump into snow and see what it's like. Anyway, so there we go. So we do a review of the Kharos Stones, what went right, what went wrong. This week, the Kharos Stones featured a sports match for the players to go through, and their ingenious solutions nearly derailed the entire thing and destroyed the whole thing. So I will be talking about how that played out. As Eric writes there, the Kharos Stones are great, but the players are like herding cats. Absolutely. These are cats who don't know if they want to go in or out of the door. Random chaos is literally just random stuff that comes up. You can derail my line of thought so easily on this channel. If you haven't been here before, you'll find out one little comment about Dragon Age Inquisition, and off I go talking about that for the next hour. So there is random chaos. Your questions, and that is the important thing. I see that Daniel Stevens says, I'm fighting Tiamat right now. Wish me luck. Good luck. I hope you have something useful up your sleeve. And I'm not texting whilst fighting. You should never text whilst fight. We've got your questions coming through, so please, please, please put questions through. If you've got system problems, if you've got role-playing problems, if you've got those kinds of things, bring those up. And then, of course, Creative Showcase, which is where sometimes I might just say, listen, I've got to create a map, and I'm going to be using this software, and you're going to be coming on that journey with me, and you can help me to design and develop those. So those are the things that we're going to be talking about. A very long list of things. We'll come back to that agenda as we get there. But for now, I see there's lots of conversations going on. I can't even keep up with them. There's lots of snow everywhere. There's no snow in Tokyo, in case you're wondering. Tokyo does not have any snow. It's very cold here, but no snow. It almost snowed, but it decided to turn into rain instead. So there we are. Right, I am just going to have a look here and see. Tiamat is the big, do the big dub. So there we go. Some advice coming in for you there. Now, let's talk about, there is snow in Sweden, says Falionia. I believe that, yes, there is plenty of snow in Sweden. Two of my players and my regular Adventures of the Windswift are from Sweden. I was in Finland last year, had an absolute blast. There was no snow, but I was there in September, so I was a little bit early, I believe. Caleb F says, hey Guy, I'm trying to prepare some character development. However, I don't want it to be very cliche or predictable. Any tips? Yes. Continue to watch today's show. We're going to be talking about character development in the creative writing process. But also, I think it's important to look at the mundane and to see just how do we do it? How do we make it not cliched? So I have done quite a few videos as well where we talk about creating character backstory and background where you can avoid any of the sort of cliches that one does fall into. So you can have a look at those as well. But we will be doing some stuff on the channel a little bit later on. I see there's a question here. Nautical says, speaking of Japan, have you picked up any Japanese tabletop RPGs? The saddest truth is that I have not, and I've spent a year trying to find Japanese players to engage with. I have found it very difficult, owing to the fact that there's a language barrier. Japanese players want to play in English when they come across me, and they want to have the experience, but they also want to play Dungeons and Dragons. So I was at the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing convention here in Tokyo, and I had lots of players coming up to me saying that they would love to play my game, but they don't think that their English is up to scratch. So although I assured them that I did not mind, there was a huge reluctance. So I haven't yet picked up any. Of course, there have been some that have been translated into English. That to me kind of defeats the object in one sense. So I see that Baron Delacroix says that there is a heat wave in Australia. I believe so. Isn't it amazing our planet split on both sides? Is that something that we do in our RPG games? Do we have fantasy worlds that have got a northern and southern hemisphere that are in opposite seasons? And if so, do we make use of it? Those are some very interesting questions I have. Now, Mo Kidlmar says, I'm running a campaign where my players are in a deep trench under the sea, that borders the abyss. What can I set up against them in terms of challenges? That's a great question. And immediately I'm going to turn to what are our expectations. If they're in a deep trench, we're expecting giant squid. We're expecting little floaty glowing aliens, perhaps. If you watch the movie The Abyss, a great, great film from the 90s. That's 1990s. So there is some inspiration for you there. I think also, what do we not expect to be in the abyss? What if the players were swimming around? I'm assuming they've got some mode of transportation, and they popped out of a bubble, and suddenly they were standing inside of a forest with trees and blue sky above them. And it was some kind of gas leak that happened in the submarine, or however it was, or however it is that they're moving around. So I would look at turning it on its head as well, if that's the kind of game that you're playing. Otherwise, yeah, those, what are they called? The anglerfish that have got the little lure on the front of them, those things are actually quite large. What if it's an anglerfish that sort of lures them there by looking like the blinking light of a lost ship? Monica Starr says, well, what about a deep sea dragon? Absolutely, I do like that idea. So I'm reading out all of the questions because we are on Twitch and on YouTube, in case you are unaware. So I'm trying to balance it out there so that everyone can hear and see what people are asking. Just another question that's come through. What kind of music do you listen to? Well, the music that I primarily listen to is, I jump onto YouTube nowadays. I used to have, and still do have somewhere, an extensive CD collection of soundtracks from films and things. I use soundtracks when I run live games because it sets the tone, sets the mood. You'll see I've done some videos on using music in your games. So primarily it's classical stuff. There's very few where it's got words in it, because if there's words, I tend to listen and my focus kind of drifts off over that way. And then I forget what I'm doing and all those kinds of wonderful things. Okay. So, another question which I quite like because I have been there myself. Frog Level 20 says, any tips on getting players into the mood of Curse of Strahd? I want them to really feel trapped in Barovia. Well, here's a thought which, although I didn't use it in this game, it was used on me in a LARP. Now, it might be breaking the boundaries a little bit in terms of role-playing versus live-action role-playing, but to get into the Curse of Strahd, usually the players go through that fog. They go through that territorial boundary borderline. Something to think about. Go and grab some thin white cotton, sheet of cotton, and cut it up into blindfolds, thin blindfolds. Now, I'm not advocating bird boxing, please. I am not advocating that. But if it's just thin enough, it's almost like a gauze. So you put it in front of the, you make each of the players wear it before the session starts, so that their eye line, their eyes are slightly obscured. They can still see, but there's this white haze everywhere. Have them run that first session, however you're getting them into Barovia, however you're getting them there, have them run with that white gauze in front of their eyes so that it's difficult to see. Maybe that will help. Of course, mood lighting, using the right kind of music. And when I ran Curse of Strahd for my players, what I did was I started the players in an old ruined chapel. It had nothing whatsoever to do with Strahd, and they were under attack by werewolves. There were hundreds of werewolves everywhere, busy trying to attack the party. The party didn't know why they were there, they didn't know what they were doing, but they were under attack by werewolves. So they were busy running. They started to run away from the werewolves. They started running down a road. They saw this fog bank. They decided they were going to try and hide in the fog bank. They ran into the fog bank with these terrible werewolves following behind, and then done. I see there's some suggestions about using dry ice. Sure, that you can use if you want to go that far. Dry ice, though, can be dangerous. If you touch it with bare skin, it can destroy the skin, so be very careful with that, please, before you do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. Let's move on to our agenda. And I'm loving these questions coming through, by the way. So if you have got questions, keep them coming. And like I said, you might have to repeat them. So there we go. Okay, now I see there Philip John Ryan, or John Ryan Philip I should say, says, sorry for posting in a crowded conversation. Is there a particular way to encourage character engagement in a scene? I frequently adopt a soft southern accent. And the text updated, so I've lost him. I frequently adopt a soft southern hinted accent. of engaging players. Well, I would only use that accent, of course, for characters and players who need it, who are from that particular race or that particular group. So that is something to bear in mind. Keep that in mind, and try and vary it around a little bit. I see there, Malazan says, increase your audio volume, please. I am not sure how to do that specifically. My levels here say that they are good. Is anybody else having audio problems? I do try to keep this. Okay, so just comment on that if you can. So engaging players is difficult, and I have done a series of videos where on the YouTube channel, so How to Be a Great GM, you're on it, on how to engage players. But the principal thing is to make them feel as if they are involved and as if they are wanted. Now, if you watch later on in about an hour or so, I will be doing my review of the Kharos Stones, where we had a character whom she could not engage in the scene. There was literally nothing that she could do in terms of what her character psyche was dictating that she do. So as the player, she could have chosen to metagame, step away, and get herself involved, but her character profile said no, this is not something that she should be involved in, so she was not involved. So that's a very good example to answer that question, and I will get there when I do that. So I'm glad that people say the audio seems great for most of them. I'm not sure. Candles also a good idea, but again, and I will say this, there is that fire hazard, so just watch out for that. Having used candles on a few sessions, they're okay, but here in Japan, the amount of fire sensors that we have, we've got fire sensors in cupboards and all over the place. It's absolutely wonderful, but it can be an issue. So I'm going to have a sip of this non-branded drink, and we're going to move forward. I love these questions. I absolutely love these questions. Joanne Dudley says, with all the new books that have come out, what would you like to play if you were a player, class and race? Well, Joanne, to be perfectly honest with you, I set a challenge this year on the channel, a player 2019 challenge, and in that 2019 challenge, I have to play a halfling female character who is going to interact with the world. Now, I do play in one game, that's the Save or Dice After Dark session, which I play this half-elf character who was a mage. He was studying to be a mage, but he dropped out because he wanted to be a fighter, so he multi-classed into fighter, and now, over the course of the adventures, spoiler alert, take your headphones off for a moment, now he has gone back to being a mage because he realized that his friends are in danger if he doesn't embrace his inner magic. So I like to play a little bit more complicated characters. Here is a hint. If you want to see me playing games, Save or Dice is the channel to watch. Coming up, once the Kharos Stones are finished, I will be playing a character there. It is unfortunately not fantasy, it is science fiction. I say unfortunately because it doesn't really answer your question, but it certainly gives me an opportunity to play a character in a very, very fun setting, and I enjoy that, and will make that character, and I'll do a video on how I do that. So be aware that will happen. Okay, Monica Star says candles can also use the electric ones. You can get them from the dollar store. Absolutely, I have one sitting on my dining room table, an electric one. They're not as fantastic, but they certainly do work quite nicely until the batteries run out, and then everyone just gets embarrassed. So there we are. Right. Any other had a first session. How do you feel about game settings? This is Dark Phoenix Gaming. How do you feel about game settings where certain abilities or items are illegal and will get the player arrested? A setting where magic is illegal, for instance. So Dark Phoenix Gaming, it's actually interesting that you raise that question. I'm going to spend a little bit of time answering it if you will permit me. So I have just done the campaign creator video for next week, which is, I think it's step 5, and it's looking at mapping and how you map out your world for your campaign, not the other way around. And the thing is, when you have a blanket restriction, when you have this, whether it's magic is illegal or paladins are all lawful good, or there is some kind of global thing, and this happens frequently. the class that has that disadvantage, you need to figure out why would a player then adopt that class. If they're going to, excuse me, that's live for you. If they're going to have this major penalty, if you're going to have a player, oh, I want to play a mage, but I can't ever use my magic in public. Whenever I use my magic, I start getting attacked by the local constabulary or the order or the circle or the Templars or whatever. If you're going to have these kinds of restrictions in your game, you need to offset it with some kind of... I'm being alerted that we've got a general or a subscriber who's joined us. I welcome you to that. Thank you. I'd have to switch through all of the channels. Wolf Hologram, welcome to the subscription on Twitch. Thank you for that. I see on Twitch we've got 27 viewers, and on YouTube we have 144. This is chaos and craziness. I do appreciate it, and those questions are coming through fast and thick. So the idea of having these negative spaces, you have to offset it with a reason for it. So if magic is dangerous, perhaps what you do is then say, okay, fantastic. Let's now bring it down. Let's now say that you can cast one level higher than the book would allow you. So there's some kind of benefit to it. If you just say that it's not going to happen, then why are they going to do it? A good example is the Jedi in Star Wars. So if you look at the Star Wars setting, the Jedi, if you are running a game anywhere after Palpatine's takeover of the Senate, all the way up until the destruction of the second Death Star, and even beyond, but up until the destruction of the second Death Star, that time period, which is arguably the most fun time period to play in, you cannot have Jedi and you cannot have more Sith. You can kind of, but the Jedi are always going to be hunted. They're always going to be persecuted. So why would players want to play the Jedi? Why would they want to play someone who is going to be persecuted? Well, the Jedi have got really cool powers and really cool tricks, usually. So there's that offset. So I would always have an offset if I were you. That's something that I would certainly do that. It is something to think about. All right, so I'm going to answer one more question. Ashley Bowers has got a question here, and I see, Ashley, you have done the repeat thing, which is fantastic. So there we go. Ashley Bowers says, hey, I had my first session on Sunday, and I wish to do a male voice, but I don't know how because I'm a woman. Also, what's the best role-playing tips for me to get into character and be more PC? Well, that's a very complicated question, Ashley Bowers. In terms of role-playing a different gender, I have done videos on these, and those videos are always incredibly contentious. Because if I were to say to you, well, if you're role-playing a man, you must make sure that you have a deep voice, because all men have deep voices. And if you don't have a deep voice, then you're not a man. We can't say that these days, and we shouldn't have said it in the past either. But how you convey the masculinity, I think, is a way in which you need to portray the character's thought processes. And these are broad strokes. I would suggest you choose a few attributes that you admired in, say, your father or your grandfather or a co-worker who happens to be male, and say, okay, he has got a particular way of going about solving problems. He thinks very straightforward. If the problem is the nail needs to be hit into the wall and he doesn't have a hammer, he will use a rock. Okay, that's his thought process. Or perhaps you go, I'm going to emulate that person, this thing, and I am going to, when he needs to hit a hammer, when he needs to hit a hammer into the wall, he realizes his mistake, grabs a nail, and then moves on. So I would look at that rather than trying to put strain on your voice. Certainly, you can drop your voice down by speaking out of the bottom of your throat. This is something that you need to practice so that you can sound nice and deep and as if you are, however you are doing it. But you can also have men who are soft-spoken, who don't necessarily drop all the way down. So there's something about that. So I would find an individual, I would find a masculine character or a character that you feel embodies your character. That could be an actor as well. And then I would try and mimic mannerisms. I see there's some suggestions coming through that it's mannerisms. I see that there are some ideas in terms of how to do that. So mannerisms, voice, the way of thinking, how they approach other characters. If you want the male character to be a defender of women, that's fine, but make sure that that comes through. The bottom line is when you are role-playing the opposite gender or a different gender from what you are, it's about making sure that your fellow players see that coming through in your role-playing. And it's a whole bunch of different things. Now is the end of man. I love Saruman. Anyway, so there we go. All right, so that I think is there. I see that some people have said, oh, well, what KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, was where the Jedi were no longer restricted and you had Jedi all over the place and you had Sith all over the place. Yes, absolutely. It's a very different time period. And I think it's a good example of saying, well, here you've got this very Jedi-centric, very Force-centric space where you've got levitation and Force lightning going off. How then do you make the individuals who are not want to play someone who is not? How do you make someone want to play a bounty hunter or a starship captain or a medic, for example? If you've got Jedi who can run around and heal and do all those kinds of things, how do you then do that? So it's the opposite problem. You've now got to try and find balance there. So is it making the weapons more powerful? Is it making the armor more powerful? So it's a fine balancing act. It really is a fine one to look at. And there we go. So there are some thoughts coming through. There's all sorts of things coming in on role-playing and different types of role-playing. See, that guy Anon says, if you are bad at role-playing, just describe your characters. Yes, I think that's something that's very important. And that's going to take me quite, I think, nicely into talking about Matthew Colville's stream. So in terms of role-playing, we often hold up the ability to put on a different voice and sound like you're a different person, or perhaps you have to put on a different accent so that you don't sound as if you were the same person that you were when you were talking previously. We do not. We look at those things and we say, that is role playing. That's what you got to do. You got to adopt the mannerisms. You got to adopt the. That is not necessarily about role playing. Role playing is up here, so it's about conveying that. So if you are someone who is not comfortable positioning yourself or changing your voice, express it through the descriptions that you give and through the thoughts that you convey on behalf of your character. And I guarantee you that will certainly help, and that will certainly come across as effective role-playing as someone who is being a ham actor and putting on these great performances. So there we are. Okay, I see there's some discussions now coming up. Jarl Breadmaker. Well, Jarl Breadmaker, are you from Europe? In which case, Jarl Breadmaker would be the right way. I don't know. Acting is a skill; not everyone can do it, but that shouldn't restrict you from roleplay. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. It is a skill. It is a talent. And it's one that you can develop, you can train up. There are other YouTube videos out there that you can do that on, absolutely. But it is something to bear in mind. Okay, so Matthew Colville's new stream. I don't know if any of you saw it. It does seem to have been like the internet phenom of this week in terms of breaking news. I even saw it was on a news feed that I get periodically, which doesn't have anything to do with role-playing, but it was talking about this news show. He had 10,000 viewers at some point on Twitch, which was amazing. I know that they were also probably streaming it out everywhere else. I loved the overlay. I thought the overlay was fantastic. What was also interesting was that they were streaming 2 streams at the same time, multi-twitching, I suppose. And the one was the players and the other was the combat map and the like. So if you didn't see that, it was an interesting experiment from my perspective anyway, in terms of how do we broadcast, how do we share our role-playing games with people. He was not using fantasy grounds. He had players sitting around his table in his house and they were going about things. Now, we're not going to get into the actual story. He had some of his new character classes that he created. The players were playing that. He had some new players with him. He had some experienced players with him. They were all just his friends sitting around the table and playing. And it was an interesting watch. Personally, I think that as Game Master's Vault comments, I love Matt Colville's thoughts and his ideas. He's very practical. He's very grounded in mechanics. I often watch his channel going, aha, so that's how you would do it if you wanted to do it correctly, as opposed to my approach, which is more sort of dramatically and cinematically. So I do like that. I didn't like the stream personally because it felt like we were watching a private game happening. He's always maintained that that's what he would do if he ever did a stream. I don't know. To me, it felt like I was sort of standing as an interloper in his house watching this thing happen. So I think it was interesting that he did it. I loved his overlay. I liked the various things that came up. How is it going to change his channel, if anything? Is he going to talk more about his games? Is he going to unpack his processes and things? I'd like to see that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that process? And I ask out of simple and sheer curiosity to get your feedback on that. Obviously, the production quality was amazing. Asugai says that it was a really nice streaming setup, allowing for the combat and RP views. Absolutely, yes, I agree with you. It certainly was, without a doubt, a really nice setup. So I'm going to have a sip of this. What were your thoughts? Let me know. What are your thoughts, or what were your thoughts? Did you even watch the stream? Did you even know that the stream was happening? That's also something. Game Masters Vault, you want to see me spraying the non-branded soft drink all over my screen. Watching people play D&D is like golf. Golf is fun to play but painful to watch, just like D&D is fun to play. It's interesting. It is interesting. Taking 20, I see you've joined our stream briefly, or maybe for the duration. That's fantastic. Love your face too. Thank you, Taking 20, for joining. That's Cody from Taking 20, lovely channel, and he's playing in the Kharos Stones with me, so there is that. Samuel Correll says definitely loved it, had some good moments. Yes. So there we are. As a guy, he talked about including a 30-minute video campaign video journal to break down parts of the story events. That's his understanding. So that's fantastic. I'm glad he's going to be doing that, because I think that is going to be the interesting part for us anyway. Certainly if we want to improve our games, that's why I do it, is to do that. Caleb F says, have you played Red Dead Redemption? I haven't, because it's not on PC. I'm only a PC gamer. So Dragon Age Inquisition is my current choice when I'm not basically playing Battlefield 5, which is very miserable because I'm playing on the Asian server. So there we are. I see a Cuspi, 1x20 is hosting the stream. Thank you for that, 1x20. I appreciate that. What's my opinion of Matt Mercer? I think Matt Mercer is a great GM. To be perfectly honest with you, I've watched some of his GM tips and things. I like more practical stuff personally, and I hope that my videos are, this is what I think and this is how I do it, I rather than nebulous thoughts. So I like more, this is why and how I do stuff, and this is it. So that's my personal opinion on that. Critical Role, I mean, what he has done in terms of the entire industry is mind-blowing. It wasn't him on his own, it was also his players as well, and the right time. So I think that's important. Open World Addict, thank you for hosting this stream. We do appreciate that. So there we are. Michael Eaton says, Mokidalmar, generally I just tell my players what the two NPCs ate, saying to each other rather than acted out. So that must have been a question that came in earlier on. Okay, lovely. Right, question, says Nick LaRocco. It seems you're pretty experienced doing online tabletop role-playing. I've never had a game last with it. Any tips to help make it last? It's a good question, and I'm not going to lie to you. I went through a period when I moved to a big city in South Africa from my smaller hometown, and I had a bunch of players who had come together, and they were good role players, and I still role play with one of them, two of them as a matter of fact. This is now almost 10 years ago. We could not get a campaign to stick. We couldn't get it to last. We'd play maybe 3 sessions, maybe 4 sessions. It would fall over. It was only once I started to have a grand plan, my master plot series, It was only once I started to incorporate that into my first session that they started to stick. Now, obviously, online, your risk is that people can show up and not show up. They can come through, they don't come through. I have the advantage of, in terms of my online games anyway, almost all of them, as a matter of fact, all of them are usually put up onto the GM Sessions role-playing channel. If you don't know that channel, I'm sure someone can share a link for 50 experience points to that GM Session channel on YouTube. You can watch some of the role-playing stuff that I do there. So it is difficult. It is difficult. And I, as Eric points out, I had to be convinced. I did. The Duke of Doom. Thank you for that, host. Eric is quite right. I had to be convinced to go online. Ryan Zera, that $5. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I did have to be convinced to play online. You can actually go and find it. I didn't take it down for a very specific reason. You can find it on my channel where I talk about how evil it is to play online and how it's wrong and bad and it doesn't give you the same experience and the like. It doesn't. It gives you a different experience. And that's why you'll see I released a video thereafter saying I was wrong. There are different experiences. I think also the platforms, they haven't really evolved too much. I was using Taking 20 in those days. I now prefer Fantasy Grounds simply because it's easier to use and I'm not that techno savvy. Eric, him, there you go. 50 experience points to you, sir. As usual, you are going. If you don't know Eric, Eric has linked in the Twitch channel anyway. I don't see there's a link in the YouTube channel, but in the Twitch channel, Eric is incredibly quick on the draw in terms of finding these videos that I talk about. So there we go. Yes, I see there's another question. Falionia has asked a question and now I've lost it. I had it. It's got what PC games have you used for inspiration in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I think the best answer to that, because there are lots of PC games that I've played, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, those are big ones. Obviously, Knights of the Old Republic. I'm sort of listing off role-playing games I think that have had an influence. Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Online, Lord of the Rings Online, all of those kinds of things. One of the biggest takeaways that I had for me was that in Skyrim, I have never finished. I have logged hundreds of hours on Skyrim, and I've got the expansions and all that kind of stuff. I have never finished Skyrim. I have never finished the main plot because the main plot has always been such slog work. It's like, okay, run here, go up the 100 steps, go, and that's it. I've never got past the 100 steps. I got to the top and I was like, oh, bleh, I'm going to go become a rogue and head of the Rogues Guild. So the side quests were more interesting. If you look at something like Mass Effect, where it's on railroads, you don't really have much of a choice, it was great right up until the conclusion where it was like, huh? Okay, that's sad. So there were some interesting choices in the way. And I think what that has done is that has said to me that if you're going to have side quests, and you should have side quests, you shouldn't just have a central story. Your side quests need to not necessarily link back into your main quest, but your side quests need to be short, they need to be sharp, and they need to provide you with something that you wouldn't normally be doing on your main quest. So I think also by being exposed to all of this kind of stuff, that's where I came up with the idea of the 4 different types of adventures that you can have. And by looking at those 4 different types, you can work out what your next adventure should be. If you don't know what those 4 different types are, we're talking thwarting adventures, collecting adventures, delivery adventures, and discovery or investigation adventures. So those are the 4 different adventure types I think that exist out there in broad strokes. They have quite different approaches, quite different expectations and values. If you break it into those 4, then your side quests, if you have a side quest that's thwarting, your main quest shouldn't be a thwarting quest, it should be a discovery quest, for example. Anyway, so that's how I use PC games to do that. I'm looking forward to Anthem coming out. I would love to play Red Dead Redemption because I believe it fits right into that space. Yeah, when they bring it out on PC, I'll probably play it. Another thing to look at is Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I enjoyed because you didn't have to actually be an assassin. Caleb Byron, thank you for that donation. I do appreciate it. I really do. Now that I've got the alerts on, I can see what's happening, which is great. By the way, all of the donations and things that are coming through are going towards, or will go towards, this bar is not going to increase, but the Flight of the Goblins. So for those of you who do not know, I am going to be at Gen Con in August. I've got my press pass sorted out. We've got our accommodation sorted out. Taking 20 donated $10. Thank you, Taking 20. I appreciate that. I really do. I am going to Gen Con, and that has been sorted out. Eric, thank you, sir. You are my hero. And he's also a very good helmsman. Eric plays Star Trek Bridge Commander, Bridge Crew, Star Trek Bridge Crew with me. He's a very good pilot. But don't put him in engineering. So we are trying to get the Goblin, the Web Goblin, together. Now, if you don't know, the Web Goblin is the genius behind our Discord, behind our web page, behind almost everything that happens, behind RPG Table Finder. He is the one that makes it all happen. He makes sure that all of these donations and things go to the right places, and that he really is the brains behind this entire channel. I'm just the one who talks about role-playing and has fun. I wanted to get him, Legan777, thank you for that. I wanted to get him to Gen Con, because obviously I get to go to these places and things because I'm the face of the channel. He doesn't. So I started this Flight of the Web Goblin to pay for him to get to Gen Con. As you can see, we've got 57 days left. I'm going to try and put my thumb there so you can see it. 57 days to get there. We've already raised $850. It's mind-blowing how far we've got already. So, and I will add all of today's stuff to this total, so it will increase. Now, yes, that's what we were talking about. I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to go back to our agenda just to remind ourselves and kind of bring me back on track. I have also missed some of these things. What's this stream called on Twitch? Says Jeff is my name. Jeff is my name. This channel is called Great GM on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/GreatGM. Done. Zen Poison says, where's Gen Con located again? It is located in Indianapolis, Indiana in the USA, taking place from the 1st of August until the 4th of August. And I am hoping to meet up with Taking 20, Nerdarchy, XP to level 3, Unmade Gaming, who's a big Twitch streamer, and he's now on YouTube as well, just to meet up with a whole bunch of people. But more importantly, or not more important, because they're important people. I don't know how to say it. I'm also extremely excited to meet any of you who might be at Gen Con, because I enjoy talking to you, and I chat to Cody and company weekly. So I know who they are. It's nice to sometimes know people behind the chat stream as well. That's just a little bit of personal insight. So there we go. Aaron Smith says, please can we talk about faction creation for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? You, sir, are preceding a video that I will be releasing probably in about 2 weeks. I'm doing that campaign creator series. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look. It does answer these kinds of questions. Faction creation is very important, and it's really cool. And it has some elements to it which we need to put in some thought into. And I don't want to be too nebulous about it, but I also don't want to give away the entire content of my video that will be coming out in 2 weeks, because I'll have more time to think about it. But faction creation, I think the important thing, the principal thing about faction creation is, why does it exist? What is its reason for existing in the first place? So if it's a faction, is it an organization? Is it a guild? Is it a clan? Is it an empire? Because its origin oftentimes will determine how it itself is going to respond. When Rome was first set up, they did not expect it to become the Roman Empire. It was not set up as an empire. When Alexander the Great took over the Macedonian kingdom, he intended on expanding Macedon and making it the ruler of all of the world. So the intentions were very, very, very different. So your initial seeding intention, in my opinion, is critical. You've also got to look at the theme of your campaign. if your campaign is a theme of greed, or let's say lust, or let's say war, let's go with war, it's the safest of the three, I think. With war, if you have a faction and you are creating that faction, how are they going to respond to your theme? Are they going to emulate your theme? Are they going to convey that theme? Is it, for example, a group of, and I'm just using this because of historical reasons, is it a group of women who have got together to create a faction of assassins because they believe that they need to do their part for a bigger war somewhere? That's their origin. But now they have just become the Dark Sisterhood who move around and are great assassins. So it's very interesting to tie all those things together. I will be doing a video on it in the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. Watch out for that one. Absolutely. So let's go back to topics. There's so many questions coming through, guys. I am absolutely loving this. Absolutely blown away by this. I'm so glad I took the risk, took the chance, and I'm so glad that you guys are all here with me as well. We've got about an hour left of the stream. For those of you who are looking at times, we've got other things to go off and do. If you do not know, and I'm going to challenge someone in YouTube to post this up as well. It is worth 50 experience points. So if you don't know, we have a Discord. We've got 3,000 users on that Discord. So a lot of these questions and things get handled on that Discord. I'm on that Discord every day as well, answering and talking and chatting and usually just moaning about not having bacon, but I am there as well. So if you don't know, join our Discord. If someone on YouTube can post that link up for Discord, I'm not technologically savvy enough to do this and not break the stream. Come on, we all know me. And then someone can obviously do it on Twitch as well for those of you there. It is worth having a look at. Okay, we're going to move into the creative writing development. Now, do not freak out. Do not think, oh, yeah, it's already been an hour and we've only done YouTube videos and we haven't even really discussed YouTube videos. So that's something not to panic about. We move around, we go as we need to. Eric Heeham, there's your 50 XP. That's 100 experience points to you. You are going to level up one day. One day you're going to level up. Regent Dawn 71780, beaten to it by Eric by just a moment. Just a moment. Okay, so creative writing development. Now, I have done this for many years, and I enjoy doing these kinds of things. So now I'm going to sip from this very filthy coffee mug. This is just from this morning. I swear I wash it every night, probably, usually. Vessel of Calamity. I am a Vessel of Calamity, I should say. I'm glad that you love the horror setting content. I like running horror as well because you have to run comedy at the same time. It's often a lot of fun. I need to stop spending my XP on scrolls. There we go. Okay, so the creative writing challenge. Now, the way that the creative writing challenge works is this is where you get to interact if you want to, and you get to share with us again if you want to. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. There is just your answer, and it allows you to unpack and to explore and to decide what to do. Now, we talk about free form, free association, where you're kind of linking different things together. If you've ever watched any of my talks, we talk about inserting the giant banana when you get stuck. So today what we're going to look at, and it's inspired because of someone who was in the chat earlier asking about mundane character backstories. Today, the creative writing challenge is a fairly simple one. I want you to take your current occupation, so whatever it is you're doing, whether you are a student, whether you are in the military, whether you are a doctor or a lawyer, I want you to take your current occupation and convert it into a fantastical occupation. So if you are in the military, for example, and let's say that you are very specifically within the military, you are a maintenance mechanic. You are someone who is absolutely vital to the survival of the military. Go ahead and drop it in there in terms of how do I convert this? Now, am I a siege engineer maintenance specialist as a little an NPC? Convert your current occupation into a fantasy space, into a fantasy occupation. Convert your life, basically. Just write a sentence into the chat. I will be able to see it here. Everyone will be able to see it here, as a matter of fact. Then we can unpack it and we can talk about it and we can explore it further. Because sometimes when we look at the mundane, when we look at our own lives, we can be inspired to create so much more. So John Ryan Phillip, you can't actually talk about your job. Okay, so then give us how you would introduce yourself at a medieval banquet or at a party. So there we go. Do that. If you are unemployed, well, why or what do you do to survive? Are you a pickpocket? Are you a cutthroat? Obviously, in modern day life, I hope you are none of those things. But how do you cope? How do you survive? What would be the fantastic return? What would be the fantastic environment that your character might work in? If you are a pornographer, pornography has been around since the very beginning. We can see that on statues all over the world. Look to the Romans. Maybe a pornographer there would be someone who creates the phallic statues and things that they need all over the place. Someone had to pose for those originally, I suppose. I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's something to think about. House cleaner, babysitter for my best friend. That's your modern day. What do you do in a fantasy setting? So convert it for us so that we can look at how it works. So Inquisitor Furtivius Aurelius says, a jobless peasant looking to be an adventurer. Fantastic. That's a good example. Now, how do we want to move from this? So let's get some more thoughts coming in here. So we've got a community manager and a digital marketing agency. Translate that into a fantasy setting. Be creative. Let your imagination run wild. How would you do that? Bastard Tactics says a royal toy maker. I like that. Is that an artificer? Are you gnomish, perhaps, and you create these mechanical toys? Can they be weaponized? Could I have a villain NPC proposition your character to design a horse that walks on its own and can contain 1,000 troops within it, but is undetectable? I'm a low-level mage who creates magic mirrors that show people images of naughty things happening around the world, says Unimportant Hero. I like that. Look at that. A low-level mage who creates magic mirrors that show people images of naughty things happening around the world. That is very interesting. I do like that. Samuel Correll says, scholar researching hypothetical hybridized spells. Now, if that isn't an NPC that my characters need to encounter, I don't know what. I think that's very, very cool. Lennox Niece says, I'm a babysitter of a vampire's child looking to escape my living hell. Now, there are some questions that come out of that, and that is the best kind of descriptor that you can do. By taking something mundane and converting it into a fantastical environment, why does the vampire need a babysitter? Well, maybe the child is not a vampire. Maybe the vampire has adopted a living being, something that is still alive, and it needs to be looked after. It needs to be suckled, etc. Why? That is a quest. That is an adventure that I want to go on and I want to find out and understand. I'm nodding off, hopefully not, says that the welder of metal fabrication, pyromaniac blacksmith, with a debilitating fixation on the quality of his own and others' work. Appraisal, yes, lovely. Pyromaniac blacksmith. Is that the villain who's setting the town on fire? Is it just someone who is obsessive compulsive? I did videos on how to make people likable. Is that particular blacksmith? Maybe he sets things on fire, but also maybe he's incredibly competent. So many options coming through. Absolutely love it. Now, if you then take this, Sarah Hayes says, real job is a hospital housekeeper, fantasy job a castle maid. Perhaps, but Sarah Hayes, and now this is important, I'm not picking on you, I'm not choosing you for any specific reason other than that's what I saw. Let's unpack that a little bit more. So castle maid, for sure, it's definitely not, it's a fantasy job without a doubt. Hospital housekeeper, could we not change that? Instead of a castle maid, what if you were the maid within a hospitalier situation? So the hospitaliers were a paladin order. I think in 2nd edition you could be a hospitalier, or a hospitaler. I don't know how you would pronounce that. I always said hospitalier. It sounds a little bit better. But what if you were a housekeeper within a hospitalier order? Now I have this matron who's running this hospital order. X1 Amy 1-X. Thank you for the bits. This matron of this hospitalier order, is she running something on the side? Is she taking the injured paladins who come in and draining their holy blood so that she can now give that to some necromancer who's creating an unholy paladin doppelganger? Is she? Well, maybe. I think that this is an excellent example of how you can take almost anything, convert it into anything else, and have fun with it. Do you see how what would a streamer be in a fantasy setting? Says Open World Addict. That's a very good question. As far as I'm concerned, a streamer in a fantasy setting would be, I would imagine, either a wandering philosopher who moves from sort of castle to castle talking nonsense but is put up with because he's mildly amusing, or perhaps it's an illusionist of some kind, or if we go more sinister like, perhaps it is someone who is slowly brainwashing anyone. It's a bard who travels around talking things and talking about things and sharing fantastical tales, but is slowly brainwashing all those who watch. There are many things that one can look at, and I think that there are many options out there that we can unpack. An enchanted puppet master, says I'm nodding off. I think that's absolutely fine. May you include me in your 5th edition game, says Charles Galkamax, as the mind-controlling bard who wanders from town to town? Sure. Unfortunately, I can't obviously play in any games whatsoever. A streamer is like Homer, says D20 Sapphire. Hello, D20 Sapphire. If you haven't followed D20 Sapphire yet, find her on Twitter. She does some wonderful streams of how she comes up with her campaigns and things. Very, very nice to listen to. Streamer is like Homer, the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Yeah, Homer was that and a bit more as well. So I love that. A streamer could host a magic show, or host via magic a show. That's also an interesting idea. And if you take it further, you can also say, yes, what if there were these strange objects that started to appear around the kingdoms, these little discs, and periodically the disc would burst into life and there would be this little rotund halfling saying, well, if you are an adventurer, hop on down to Hobbit's Hoppington, where you can find the latest in magical items, all at slashed prices. Hop on down now. And then suddenly it changes to, let's say, a grizzled adventurer. Well, I used to be an adventurer and till I took an arrow to the knee. Then I went and visited Hobbiton's Hopping Halftown and got knee pads. And since then, I've always been safe. Whatever. I mean, these little discs could be something that could be interesting, especially the little discs were drawing on the life force of those who would watch the entertaining shows, and that life force was then fed back to the lich who was behind the whole thing. I mean, it really is something that one can have a look at. I see there's some other options. I'm a commerce student in real life in a fantasy setting. This is Jarl Breadmaker. I'm a student under the great businessman Frederick Hickson, aiming to become the greatest steward of the Kingdom of Zealand has ever known. I do like that. I do like that. Until the kingdom is destroyed and then it becomes rebuilt, called the Kingdom of New Zealand. Yes, there we go. How an assassin who has made the mistake of angering a powerful wizard to becoming an amnesiac and need to be picked up by a veteran with experience in Inquisition. There's something going on there. I'm not part of that. Can we post questions here, says 00zim00. Yes, please post questions here. I love those. That's why the stream is happening. This is sessions with the GM. That's me. So there was a question as to what is this Flight of the Goblin that came through earlier. That's about raising funds to get the Web Goblin, who is my business partner and the co-creator of this channel, to Gen Con this year in Indianapolis in the USA. So there we go. Think about that. Evelyn Lee says, how do you feel about a character that whispers all the time? I'd love to hear how you'd make it sound for inspiration. A character that whispers all the time. Do they whisper messages of evil? Do they just whisper because they're very quiet, they're very withdrawn, they're very timid? They don't like to intrude, or those kinds of things. That's a question that I would ask to understand it a little bit more. Again, any kind of mannerism, if it's going to irritate others, so if the character whispers so softly that you can't hear her around the table, why are you doing that? Why are you making me suffer and lean and go, what? All the time. It's funny the first time around, but after a while it becomes irritating and I might just let your character fall off a bridge and die. So there we are. There we are. I see Richard Keenan wrote something interesting. I do transcription work for a concrete company. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Transcription in my mind means to write from one to another for a concrete company. I'd imagine myself as a dwarven legal document writer for a scribe for a merchant company. I love that. I do like that. So that is really cool. I do like that. Anyone can answer. This is an open forum. We can all talk about things and move on from there. The creative question, as was pointed out by Trackstar Omega, is of course, how do you fantasize your current occupation? And that's not as what is the fantasy occupation you would like to have in real life. That is, what would your occupation be in a fantasy setting? Nick LaRocco says, other than Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, what are your favorite tabletop role-playing games right now? Mine are Modiphius's Conan 2D20, The One Ring, and Fate of the Norms Ragnarok. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, the Modiphius 2D20 system never sat well with me. I have played it a couple of times, Conan and the Star Trek adventures that came out. I have others. What I'm currently playing is obviously Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Starfinder, where I mod and retcon I should say, the starship combat. But Starfinder, I'm busy working on my own system at the moment, which is based around more successes than failures. I also, D20 Modern is one of my favorite go-to RPGs. I felt that it was incredibly balanced for using a modern day setting, or for a science fiction setting, or for a Cthulhu setting as well. There was a Urban Arcana that came out that added magic into the whole thing. So that was really cool. Then some friends of mine have written a thing called Starship Creator. Jason Keach wrote that, and I'm really excited, or really keen, to try and play that. But it's not something that you can do online, sadly. There's lots of cards and things. You build your own starship. Really excited for that. So I would like to give that a try. There are so many systems out there. There really are. And I think the bottom line is choosing one that sits well for you from a narrative perspective as the GM. It doesn't really get in the way. I like systems where the players can move and the story can move, and you don't have all of these things kind of blocking the way. Okay, so Tess041, Guten Morgen, meine Herr, or Fraulein, I'm not sure. Good morning from Germany. Glad to have you with us. Yes, Germany, well, is a very early German wake up, but yes, thank you for joining us. I do like that. So, right, 00zim00 says, question, how do you engage low intelligence wisdom PCs with puzzles? This is a real trick. Puzzles is a video that I will be doing. I did one on riddles, and you're going to find Zen Poison, $9. Thank you so much for that. I do appreciate that donation. I will be updating this bar. This bar is not yet set to all of the different channels. This is the first time that I'm streaming to both Twitch and to YouTube at the same time. So if you're wondering why am I reading out the questions, it's so that viewers on both platforms have an opportunity to participate and think about those questions. So, and there goes the question straight out of my head. Puzzles. So puzzles, like riddles, are very challenging. And I wrote a module. Where is the module? I wanted to show it to you. Here we go. So if you have not yet seen this module, this is on the first night. It's a free module. You can get it off of our website. You can go and buy it on DriveThruRPG if you are so inclined. So this is on the first night. It was written for release around about Christmas. And in it, there is it's actually a puzzle riddle. And the players have to go and dig up 9 bards for a reason. The players play as goblins. Now, in it, there is a riddle puzzle. So what it is, I know it's inverted, but here is the riddle. There were 3 different riddles, and then here are the words. So as the GM, you would cut the words out of this page. That's why it's not made all pretty. You would cut the words out, and then you'd give the words to the players, as well as then the riddles, which are inscribed on tombs. They then have to, put the words into the riddles to make sense, and then they have to solve the riddles. So when I was running the game, I had planned out this puzzle, and I was running out of time. It was a one-shot that I was running at a little convention here in Tokyo, a lovely little convention. at a craft beer venue, so it was a great day. I ran out of time. So instead of doing the puzzle component, I just gave them the riddle side of things. They got it wrong. It didn't really matter. They just had an encounter which they wouldn't have had if they had solved it. So how do you do puzzles with low intelligence characters? I believe that it boils down to metagaming. And I know that this is a contentious response and it's a contentious issue and it always will be. If you are playing a low-level character who hasn't got a very good intelligence, oftentimes low intelligence individuals think very, very, very linearly. They don't think laterally. They don't think outside of the box. Sometimes, however, their thought process is so unstructured because there's a lack of intelligence there. There's a lack of education, perhaps. There's a lack of awareness. There's a lot of whatever. Because of that fact, they sometimes think in directions that make no sense whatsoever to the outside observer, but in their own head, it makes perfect sense. If I have to do this and I do that, well, that's going to happen. Well, yes, but the world will end. Well, you didn't say that you didn't want the world, you know. So I would then sit back and go, as the player, I can figure out this puzzle because most role players are fairly intelligent individuals. I can figure this out. My character can't. Your puzzle then changes. Instead of trying to figure out the puzzle is, how do you get your character to figure it out? And it could be that they rely on a practical solution. Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. We move this chocolate over there, that chocolate over there, and that chocolate over there, and that solves the puzzle. Everyone else will look at you as if you're from another planet, but you are still role-playing a low intelligence and solving the puzzle at the same time. So that's how I always suggest you sort of take it. I see there's some other idea. Bastard Tactics says, give them practical puzzles, riddles, but make the answer a specific lever that needs to be pulled. You only need a couple of negative effects that way. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have necessarily very specific things, you can do that. I see Bob Race has asked a question, which I do like, Bob Reese. How do you deal with players' cell phones? There is a gentleman whom I believe is in the chat on Twitch, Game Master's Vault, who has a very unique way of dealing with cell phones. I personally like it, but you have to set this rule right up front with your players. He has a box, and you put your cell phone in the box, and you only get it back during breaks. You don't have it with you at the table. Now, of course, technology is changing, and we've got things like D&D Beyond. We've got all sorts of online apps and things, so people can make an argument. Well, my character is on my phone. I need my character on my phone. I would always say, and you have to have it printed out as well, because if your phone's battery dies, if you, etc., 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 you also have to gauge your players. Some players, they're just not willing to do that. They're just not willing to do that. So again, it's about kind of gauging it. If you have players, however, who are sitting on their phones, I think, as a matter of fact, it's coming out next week on the channel, when to call the game, when to end the game. If all your players are sitting on their phones and not having fun, time to leave. Time to leave. Jump out of that, find different players, or speak to your players and say, guys, what do you want to do? Play on your phones or play D&D? Or role-playing for that matter. So something to think about there. Okay. Lovely questions coming through. Mr. Voyager, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Hello from Russia. Hello. Nice to have you join us all the way in from Russia. And Jack Blackthorn, Guy Live, yes. This is going to become the regular thing now. So every Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, whether you are on YouTube or you are on Twitch, you can find me there. And I will be here for 2 hours chatting away, talking away, and doing all sorts of wonderful things. So we have done, I'm just looking at the topics, bringing those back. We've done creative writing, we've done YouTube reviews, review of my sessions. So here is a question for you, because I do ask this. I am aware that we've got far more viewers now than we normally have. If I look at Twitch, we're on 33 people on Twitch. That's a big number. And on YouTube, 162. That is insane. That's absolutely amazing. So guys, this is phenomenal. The support that you offer me is mind-blowing. So do you want me to do a review of the Kharos Stones? Now, if you don't know, the Kharos Stones is a game that I run. It's on the Save or Dice channel. It runs every Wednesday night for 2.5 hours or so. I do the review where I talk to you about what my plan was, how it happened, and how I had to change and adjust. So if you want me to say yes, or it's something like that, I see that I'm nodding off has already said yes, please do. Sebastian Tenazil, thank Cthulhu, I'm still awake. It's 4:15 a.m. Oh my. Sebastian, look at me, you brought on my coughing fit. I'm so worried. Goodbye. I'll be back. Oh, and that's not muted because oh, bugger. I had tried to set this up. I really tried to set this up to make it professional. And oh well, there it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. If any of you have ever watched any of my Twitch streams, there's always a disaster, and there it goes. The cold has not yet left my lungs. Everything else is fine, just that, and it doesn't allow me to talk very much, which I hate. So I apologize profusely for that broadcast. Laura is laughing at me all the way from England. I hope it gets really cold. Anyway, so there we are. There we are. It's all fine. The disaster. It is over. We can move on. We can move forward. I didn't see if anyone I saw some messages coming through of people wanting me to talk about the Kharos Stones or not. I don't know if I can scroll up in this chat. So yeah, there was one yes. After watching the Kharos Stones, I've decided you are one of the best cat herders ever. Thank you. I'll take that trophy. Best cat herder of the year. Bring it, says Stephen Ryder. Okay, I think so. Yes, lots of people talking. All right, so Kharos Stones, Kharos Stones, Kharos Stones, Kharos Stones. This is spoiler alert, major spoiler alerts. So if you are a fan of the Kharos Stones and you have not yet watched up to the latest episode, please, please, please jump ship now, mute it, go make a cup of coffee, that sort of thing, because I do now talk about spoilers, and I'm going to bring up the plan as well. If you don't know what the Kharos Stones are, I will very briefly take you through the plan of the Kharos Stones. This is using my method. It's outlined in my book and on this channel all over the place, how I go about setting up adventures and things. I'm just busy looking for it now here because I closed all of my windows like a fool. So this is the outline, and then I'll talk about what happened in this particular episode. Make coffee, it's 4:17 in the morning. Well, yes, one can make coffee at any time. That's the beauty of modern day technology, I think. Anyway, all right. So let me do the thing with the thing, and I'm gonna go here, which I have now set up correctly, and move that there because that limitations. Bingo, boom, and behind me, and I need to turn these on so that we can see what's happening. And boom, there we go. So now, does anyone else feel that currency drags the game down? Oh, I'm going to do a whole video on currency, Michael Eaton, just because of that. I'm going to do a whole video on that. All right, so behind me now, above and behind me, this is my plot, and I'm going to hide these red stripes so that you can see. So if you are not aware or familiar with the master plot adventure outline, you can get these templates from our website, www.greatgamemaster.com. Someone can find the link for 50 experience points directly to these templates. They are there. You can download them. Now, this is my entire plot for the Kharos Stones. So we have worked through each and every single one. We have identified them, and I'm dropping a whole bunch, by the way. So our very first adventure, we were introduced to the whole thing, and it kind of went through. This is how far we've got, and we're now on, we've got 9 sessions left of 24 sessions. So we have done 15 episodes already. And that is a lot of episodes. That is a lot of episodes. A lot of sessions, if you like. 15 episodes is really, I would say, more along the lines of probably 7.5 to 8 actual sessions of 4 hours or 5 hours of gameplay. So We now have got to the point where the characters can remove the shards. The characters have got these shards in them that belong to a god. They're trying to remove those. In order for them to remove the shards, we had 3 steps. They had to learn how to remove the shards without killing anybody. They had to get the tears of the goddess, and they had to get the mold of the heart. Then they have to travel to the core of the planet to forge it together. And if we skip out these next few, they then have to learn how to return the heart to the gods and get to that location and then do that. Now, I'm saying we're going to skip out stolen, and I can actually do that now because I have not done it before, is we are going to put a line through stolen, and I'm going to tell you now why. We're going to do that. No. We're going to do that. Yes. Is that the right? That's the right button. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. And I'm going to color them in. I'm using Photoshop just because it was easier this way to show you guys. Those are being removed. So red are the adventures that we planned and have run. We have had some other adventures in between. They're not part of the master plot. They have taken us on a different journey. Now we continue moving forward. I have 9 sessions left of the Kharos Stones. 9. We've just done the removal of the shards. So that means for Tears, Mold, Forge, learn how to return the heart to the gods, and get there, and conclusion, that's already 6 more adventures that I have still to run through in 9 sessions. If any one of those sessions takes more than 2 sessions, I'm in trouble. So I have to drop these stolen, this whole idea of it being stolen. The removal of the shards was under normal circumstances. The players go to X, they learn X. As a story flow, getting to X and getting X itself, one would imagine they could be a dungeon crawl, they would have to go to an obscure library, they would have to defend the library from attacks, they would have to do something along those lines. I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be something different, and I wanted the heroes of the story to be celebrated. So I decided, okay, the removal of the shards is going to be a sports match. And there was a short story that did the rounds many years ago about aliens watching a football match, an American football match, and recording it in their journal. And the way that they wrote about it, the way that they spoke about it, was as this religious ceremony, with the druids dressed in black and white stripes who would initiate the ceremony of the sacred object being moved around the field by all of these participating priests who would simulate violence in combat to show the overcoming of the forces of good and evil. I said, okay, great. I love that idea. That's what I'm going to use. So I set up this arena, and I believe I can bring it up with impunity. Let me go there. So that you can have a look. I think it's important to show you this arena. I set up this map. Very simple map. It's an arena. And I went, okay, our players are going to start on one side, and they're going to have to get to the central object, the idol, and then they're going to have to get the idol to the other side. There will be an opposing team who needs to do the same thing. I didn't then want it to just be basically a football match where they were going to be running backwards and forwards. I didn't want it to feel like it was too easy. So I decided, okay, we're going to flood this arena with water. The Romans used to do it and have naval battles. So I thought, well, why not? Let's do it. We can do that. And then we're going to have these wooden posts all over the place, which I placed roughly around the map to create pathways. Very specifically that there was always more than one path to get to the idol. But all paths led to the idol. You couldn't sort of not go past the idol. You could kind of skirt around down here, but you wouldn't get anywhere near the idol. So I created this very basic board. I didn't have any plans specifically other than they need to move around. Now, the players then arrive, they see this, it's 5 players, I had 5 lizard folk who were fighting against them, and instantly the players go, right, I can fly, I can use my little fairy dragon that's invisible, it can fly out, it can get the idol, it can bring it back to us, and then we're done. So I had to change some things on the fly, quite literally in this case. Suddenly there was a magic dome over the top of the arena that was put in place. I don't like to just say, oh, there's a magic dome, you can't fly over. I like to say there's a magic dome that protects the viewers, because in these grey areas around the arena, I had bleachers with people standing and watching. So I said, right, there is a magic dome that protects the viewers from whatever happens inside the arena, because it was a blood sport, so you could do anything that you liked. So that was one of the adaptations that I had to come up with, and I had to give it a justification as well. Then in the first round, and I had said that there were going to be 3 rounds, because I was anticipating each round taking maybe 20 minutes to play out. So that was going to give me roughly an hour of play, and then I had another hour to then go through the rest of the sequence of removing the stones and the like. Well, the first half, the characters did what they normally do. They sort of split up in different directions. They had no plan, no strategy whatsoever, and Draxus just used his dragon to go and get the idol and then bring it back. That kind of defeated the object, and that little dragon could have flown over the lizard folk and put the idol on the far side, which is where they would score the point to win the match. So I needed to intervene and to try and put some pressure on the players, because otherwise, match 1, the dragon grabs the idol and wins. Match 2, the dragon does the same thing and wins, game over. That's not challenging, that's not exciting. That's not what I had intended for this event to be. So instead, I then said, all right, well, if I was an event organizer and I was watching this, and it's 2 teams of 5, the dragon now counts as a 6th member. So that's a rules violation. We'll still give it to you because, yes, we hadn't given you the full outlay of rules, but it feels as if it's a violation. So I had them literally go down and address it. And what happened was Draxus played very, very well, I feel. Thank you for that donation. I really do appreciate it. $20, Vessel of Calamity. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Michael decided he wasn't going to use it in the second round. It was at that point that Lionel then felt that instead of being comedic relief, and Lionel and Dante were brilliant in that first game, he then decided to fly. So that's why I needed the dome, so that he couldn't just fly in, grab the idol, fly over and drop it. Basically, it was a repeat of the fairy dragon's sort of activities. I didn't like that either. A pseudo-dragon. Great. So we then move forward. We then have this dome. They then start to engage. Vankus is always a wild card, and I never know what to expect from Dave. He has so much role-playing history, and he is so crafty. I would hate to fight him in a straight-up battle, because it would be incredibly difficult, I think. He is very, very crafty. He turned into a crayfish of all things, and I mistook it for a lobster initially. So anyway, he turned into a crayfish, and he started to swim around. What I had done, because I wanted to up the ante, I had wanted to make the arena feel as if it's a match that's going on, but there's more to it. I had added in this giant fin shark thing, which eventually became known as a giraffe shark. It's an elasmosaurus, a very long-necked elasmosaurus, which I had pumped up in terms of stats. It was a custom-made monster, or a reskinned monster, let's put it that way. Vankus jumped into the water with it and started to try and engage it. Now, it only has an intelligence of 1, which in my opinion is not very smart at all. It's basically an animal brain, it just eats, and that's it. So we then started to play through that. And the chaos that then ensued because of that dome, because that they decided not to violate the rules, I think was absolutely amazing. It was so much fun watching them. They got that idol all the way to the other side, and in traditional sporting climaxes, there was this battle going on under the water with this giraffe shark trying to eat everything. It was absolutely so much fun to then watch. It then took the full 2 hours to play out. Now, someone earlier on asked about including players in the game and trying to make players feel more included. I had a really big challenge. The player who plays Gwen, Ginger Ninja, I absolutely love the way that Lauren plays Gwen. She is the protector of Draxus. She will not move away. She will not leave Draxus' side. If she thinks Draxus is in danger, she's not going anywhere. Now, Draxus, being this warlocky thing that he was hurling bolts of energy across the arena. He had no reason to leave the pier that they were on or try and engage in the water. He had none of that whatsoever. He didn't need to go anywhere. As a result, Gwen didn't need to go anywhere either. And all that did was it meant that she didn't have anything to do. So when I would throw to her in her initiative, what are you doing? I'm standing protecting. So I couldn't engage her. I was even getting a message from Cody. We often sort of have the chats going on within the game itself. It can sometimes be disruptive, but it can also be a really good tool, and that's one of the benefits of online play is you can send these secret messages to the GM. In Cody's case, he's the producer of the show. He was sending me these messages saying, can we get Gwen involved? I was stuck. There was nothing that I could do outside of changing the rules of the game by having something else come in. There was no reason why the lizard folk would even go and try and attack the pier. You could argue that they wanted to try and shut Draxus down, but after the first round, he wasn't that dangerous. Yes, he was hurling out arcane Eldritch Blast, but he wasn't hitting as often as he had in the first round. So at the same time, we asked Gwen, are you okay? Are you having, we asked Lauren, are you having fun? And she did. She was having an absolute blast, watching the antics of the other three as they get eaten by giraffe sharks and lizard folk and so on. And yes, there are tweet messages going on around the most bizarre call. Laura Bones brought it up, so I can mention it now. The most bizarre role-playing call I have ever made in 20 plus years of role-playing was for a character to give us a pelvic thrust check to see how far they could twerk another character. It was absolutely an amazing moment. You had to be there to see the humor in it. Like I said, it's doing the rounds on Twitter at the moment. Otherwise, go and watch Save or Dice, this latest episode. It was absolutely amazing. Ale Fiend, no questions here, just saying hi. Hello, Ale Fiend. Welcome to the stream. So the Kharos Stones then ended with this giant celebration, and I wanted it to be a celebration. The last couple of moments with Kharos Stones, they've had the kids, and they've had these angsty moments and issues. So I wanted this to feel like a giant celebration. So we had a giant celebration. Absolutely. It was so much fun. It was so much it was a pleasure as a GM to watch so much chaos unfold and to happen. It was absolutely amazing. Terranatum, I see you've just joined the stream. Welcome for joining us. Yes, twerking in Dungeons and Dragons, it's a new thing. It really isn't. Okay, so Kharos Stones then ended off with Lionel being given this black disc. That is for next week's show. And I'm not going to talk too much about what I plan for next week. All I'm saying is that now that my players have gone through the removal of the shards, because that's going to happen next week. The shards will now be removed. I did not want the next mission, the Tears of the Goddess, which I had set up as being in this very pseudo-Japanese type environment. I did not want it to feel like it was another go fetch mission, because we've got removal of the shards, go fetch the information, Tears of the Goddess, go fetch the tear, mold of the heart, go fetch the heart. It felt like it's just too repetitive. So the Tears of the Goddess, what I have planned to do there is that the characters will get the Tears of the Goddess, that is the goal, but they themselves are not going to get it. We're going to focus more on Lionel and Dante's backstory, because I think they're great characters and it's something worth exploring. We've looked at Vankus's backstory. Lionel and Dante are up next in terms of their backstory, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then at the very end, Draxus's and Gwen's backstory is going to come through, and I think it's going to work out really well from that perspective. Cameron F, welcome to the stream. I'm glad you are enjoying it. I'm glad that you are here. Thank you for participating. Now, Matthew Chubik says, first time in the stream, love your videos, they have really helped me out, and now designing my first campaign because of you. Thank you so much. Matthew Chubik, thank you for that kind of response, because it just encourages me to do more. So I do appreciate that, I really do. Now, when we then look at this plan, you might be going, well, yes, sure, you have to have your campaign fit within this time frame, because that's how long you've been commissioned to run the game on the Kharos Stones, or at least on Save or Dice. There isn't that kind of time pressure under a normal circumstance game. Personally, I believe that you should have these kind of time constraints so that it keeps you focused. It keeps you driving and it keeps you on point, because sometimes campaigns can just wander off in different directions, and it really isn't worth. Not worth. The campaign kind of peters out because everyone forgets why they were there in the first place. So if you're running a campaign, I would focus it, and I would still use this layout behind. I do anyway. It's 15 adventures at least, if not more. And then you throw in character backstories, and then you throw in side quests. So you end up with a year or two's worth of story, but I would still stick to it, and so you can keep it back and keep it going there. I see that there was a donation that I think I missed. I'm not sure. One of our moderators is letting me know. Vessel of Calamity, I do thank you for that $20 super chat that you gave through to the channel. Thank you for that. I was told that you had a question which I missed and that it's worth answering. So if you can just repost that question, please, Vessel of Calamity, I will have a look at that. Raven 9, one of our regulars, I'm glad to see that you're still here. So I wanted your opinion on, okay, I'm done with Kharos Stones, and if there are any questions, if you have questions about Kharos Stones, ask them now, if you please, so that we can talk about it. But for now, so Raven 9 says, so I wanted your opinion on a new character backstory I have so far for an orc-only party. We wanted it like this, orc-only party. Member of the orchestra, Amugu. Okay, all right. I was excited, and now I'm not sure. Member of the orchestra, Amugu, a bard, berserker. You're going to break me again. A bard, berserker orc with much large than most orcs, who only wished to play his lute. The problem was he made the lute from a large battle axe, as a normal lute wouldn't fit in his hands properly. Everywhere he went, he scared the village half to death, making it near impossible to get the proper popularity he wanted. That is until he met the manager for the orchestra. I think that's a very interesting way of doing a character, an orc bard character. Kharos Stones also has a half orc bard in there, played by Jacob from XP to level 3. It's a very interesting character. I think, you know, when you look at something like this and you go, okay, it's an orc only party, that's fantastic. Are the rest of the party bards? Is there sort of a mixture? I see that you're a bard berserker, so that gives you lots of combat ability as well as perhaps healing and the like. So that's pretty well rounded. I think that's quite fun. I think that with these kinds of stories, you need to then take it further. Obviously, I hope you have a backstory for where that particular battle axe came from. Is it a dwarvish battle axe? What are the likes? Why did your character become a lute player in the first place? And you know, is it to inspire their comrades? Obviously, the barding sides of things will do that. It's all bard something. Okay, so this is a genuine idea. I think your GM can have a lot of fun with it. I think that when you have this central idea of the orchestra, I wouldn't be surprised if your GM will focus on that for the first maybe quarter of the campaign. You'll have a couple missions that are based around music, based around those kinds of things, and then I think your GM will start to move away from it. So if you watch The Adventures of the Windswift, the crew was centered around the Windswift, the ship itself, and they were doing all of these sort of character things. And then they moved away. Well, I moved them away. They moved themselves away. I mean, there was all sorts of decisions that went on, and I let things happen for a very specific reason. So I think that you need to have that. Don't just get fixated on the idea of the orchestra. It's a lovely idea. I think it's a great starting point. But I would now look at expanding that further. So Vessel of Calamity's question, just in case they have stepped away, Eric has repeated it here for us. Thank you for that. Is an interesting one. I'm running Curse of Strahd and would love to know how you would roleplay Strahd. I see him as a mix between Lucifer and perhaps an archfey. I'm trying to avoid the comical, I have come to suck your blood. Absolutely. And I think that's where all of the suggestions are coming through. Okay, I couldn't work out why everyone was talking about Gary Oldman. I love Gary Oldman as a performer, as an actor. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I really do appreciate his work. He's so diverse in terms of performances. So how would you run Curse of Strahd? to me, I think that there are two ways of looking at Strahd. One is that he is the Dracula. I mean, obviously that's what he's based on. It's very difficult to come up with vampires who are not based on that. That's why I liked Blade so much as an alternative vampire positing the space. When you look at Anne Rice's vampires, for example, they're very much Draculan in their approach to life and that kind of thing. I think that Blade took them in a different direction. I'm not going to comment on Twilight because I haven't watched it, so there is that. But with Strahd, I would look at two facets. I would either have it that he is a cat, and that's how I would play him. I wouldn't go with the cold, diabolical empire who sits in his tower and imperiously destroys those that do his bidding. That's cliched. I would play him either like a cat. Oh, there's adventurers. I can play with them for... Oh, I'm bored now. I would play him as dangerous and as fickle as a cat. So that's one way of doing it. The other way, I would play him as tragic. There are oftentimes attempts to show the tragic side of Dracula. He became evil because his beloved and betrothed was murdered. That's a pretty tragic story when you look at it from that perspective. And I think, what was that film that came out the other day, or a couple of years ago, Dracula Untold, or something along those lines, which sort of tried to look into that aspect. That's a different way. If he is tragic, allow him to be tragic. So he is incredibly powerful, but he is searching for answers. He's searching for a reason for continuing. So if he is sad and he arrives and the PCs touch on something that is personal to him, he might get intrigued. What do you know about my suffering? And can you change it? Can you alleviate it? I will be back. I need to think. So I would look at it on those two sides. Sadly, when I was running Curse of Strahd, I was running it for, I think it was 8 players. It was crazy. It was a birthday present to Sean Isaacson, the Marvel comic artist who drew the great GM visage, the image that you see everywhere. Really appreciated to him. So I never got to actually play Strahd in that, but that's what I would do. Is I would try and look at different options. The cat thing, I see that people like dropping players off of a cliff like a cat drops glasses off of a shelf. Yes, I think that could be something quite interesting. I think there was also a mention which did catch my eye, but it's gone now. There's so many things coming through, so much wonderful chat happening. There are different ways. No, I must find it. I must find it. Where is it? How do I go up? Don't forget Nosferatu. Todd the Wraith from Atlantis. Yes. So Todd. Yeah. Now, if you haven't watched Stargate Atlantis, they had vampires, but a collective form of vampires. It was an interesting take on a science fiction version of vampires. Todd the Vampire was just an angry, complicated character. He was an interesting character. So definitely something to look at there. I don't think Strahd would be particularly angry. Maybe he is. Maybe he's just very, very angry. And I don't like suggesting the idea that the players say, oh, my mother's name was Michelle, or whatever the hell that mother's name was that they used as the MacGuffin for Superman and Batman. That's just me. I would definitely look at that. Sentient Sentiment says, I suggest you watch Vampire Review's Ravenloft's I Strahd takes a look into his history and may provide some insight. Sentient Sentiment, have you tried to share a link with us that I can unlock to that channel? I'm always eager to look at different YouTube channels to see what's going on. And to get different insight. If there's an insight into vampires, I would love it. The origin of vampires as an actual entity is, I think, particularly interesting as well. How that sort of came into being, how vampires are a modern day monster that we've constructed. It was interesting too. Yeah, your Martha's name is Mother. Your mother's name is Martha too. You must be good. Yes, absolutely. Not a great moment in cinematic writing. In my opinion, I think that they could have found so much better solutions to that. Martha being the name, yes, correct. So there we are. Right, where are we sitting? What are we doing? I've lost track of all the stuff that we should be doing. I've been sidetracked. Random chaos has ensued. Is there any surprise that would ever happen? No, well, we are actually into random chaos now as normal. After that, well, creative showcase. I'm not going to be doing anything particularly today. Next week we can certainly look at that. Game Master's Vault says, I would play Strahd like Anthony Hopkins in Hannibal. Or Anthony Hopkins really as Lecter Hannibal, I think. That sort of cold, calculating, slightly amused play, that could be very, very chilling as well. I think that could be a lot of fun to do that. Kyle Katarin, hi guy, first live-time viewer. Fantastic, glad to have you with us, Kyle Katarin. Is that a Star Wars name? It seems to ring bells, I don't know why. I could be completely wrong. Firefox Mishima and several others are talking about the types of vampires you can choose from White Wolf. White Wolf Vampire was a wonderful, wonderful idea to bring in all the different types of vampires. Oh, we've got Egyptian vampires, we've got this, we've got that, we've got the next thing. It was lovely, and I really enjoyed playing it because of that fact, where you had all of these different things, and where one has different types of vampires and vampire hunters, and I really enjoyed that. I never got to play that system too much. In those days, it was black dots that you filled in and that determined sort of thing. Cameron F is asking, can you sing us out when you end the stream? The answer is no, I cannot sing. And especially since I can't breathe properly, I wouldn't want to inflict that on you. But if I do screw up the music, I might have to hum. Or maybe you should hum, I think. Let's see if we can get you guys to hum whilst the end is playing. The end is nigh. We've only got a couple minutes left. So if you've got any more questions for sessions today, let me have them. I have had a blast. I mean, the time has gone so quickly. It's like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Really, really enjoyed these kind of conversations. And, you know, I think that oftentimes that we are sitting around a table chatting. And one of my greatest memories, recent memories anyway, of this kind of conversation was we were with Game Master's Vault, which is currently, you know, he's currently located in the heart of the polar vortex, I believe. We were sitting around the table and we were just chatting post-game. We'd had a 9-hour gaming session, which was fantastic. And the next evening, it's like, should we game? Now, let's just sit and chat. And we talked about all sorts of stuff. It was absolutely wonderful. Kyle Katarin is from Jedi Outcast. There we go. Thank you for that. Feldspar Helmet. Question. I didn't have my pencil ready before you. Can you please restate the 4 types of adventures missions? Yes, Feldspar Helmet, you will find those on various videos that I have done. But those 4 different types of missions, you have thwarting, delivering, collecting, and investigating. So those are the ones that I break them down into. By thwarting, I mean defeating, overcoming, whatever the case might be, something along those lines. Collecting means to get somewhere easily and then actually get the object. So it might be travel to the distant mountain of Oth and gather forth the stones of goo and bring them back to me before the full moon. The collecting part of that is the difficult part. The getting back is the difficult part. Delivering is all about obviously getting to the delivery point, but then also what happens at the delivery point. So they're very similar, but they have very different feels and they have very different expectations. And then discovery, of course, is, well, I discover this and that, and the rift opens to a different world. This happens, that happens. So there we go. Something to bear in mind. So those are the 4. Rekka Wronghouse says, question, I have friends of mine who play too many jokes rather than game, and they play their characters too much to the point it ruins game or derails it, even almost killing player characters. Rekka Wronghouse, this is It is something that has come up before, and I actually think that someone asked me that on Facebook as well. I did respond to that one, and I'm going to give you the same kind of response. You need to decide, or you need to ask your players. This is the only way. There's no other way to do it, I'm afraid. At least nothing that I can think of that will get you an immediate result. You need to ask your players, is this what you want? You want farcical, crazy gameplay where everything is just insane and you can play goblins or whatever, and it doesn't really make much sense and the rules are blah, rules are guidelines. If that's the kind of game they want to play, then that's the kind of game they want to play. Alternatively, you can also voice and say, listen, I'm having real difficulty the way you guys derail the games and things. It's difficult for me to play this. So if you want a serious game, then we need to play it seriously. If you don't, that's fine. We can play those nonsensical games. And then it's a case of deciding, do you want to carry on playing that crazy, brainless game? Or do you want to say, thanks for playing, and go online or find a different group to play specifically that? You can remain friends with the others and board game and have fun and chill and socialize and that sort of thing. Definitely. I'm not advocating that you just abandon them completely for being bad role players. But ultimately, that is the solution. Is you if they want to play a crazy game, that's what you're going to get. And I have had it where I have had players, they were younger players, they just really wanted to have fun and be crazy and that sort of thing. And we played 1 or 2 sessions. It wasn't for me. I like sessions that generally have a bit more meat to them. I will raise my hand first and foremost. I love a session where everyone is laughing because of the situation, but there's a seriousness to it. It's like we're seriously dedicated to having fun. I don't know if that's confusing or not, but that's the way that I would do it. So there we go. Fire Hazard says, question, how do you run a campaign in a world where many spells in the rulebook violate the rules of magic in that world? Avoid those settings, ban, modify these offending spells. Interesting that this has come up again. We were speaking about this earlier on in the stream in terms of when you nerf a particular class. In this case, it would be spellcasters because of the spells that they no longer have any access to. You need to figure out why would someone want to then play that class. So in other words, why bother going through the process of denying all of those spells if no one's going to play the class? Is it going to be something that you can look at in terms of adjusting so that the player characters, Monomer, thank you for that donation, I do appreciate it. Are you going to make it specifically so that the players' characters, when they need a resurrection spell, they just don't exist, and so they can't do that? That might be more interesting. I think the challenge that you're going to have is if you do deny spells to casters, what are you compensating them with? A lot of rule systems are based around a vague balancing kind of system where, sure, the mage has ability to cast all of these various spells. That's why they have less hit points or they can't wear armor or whatever. If you're taking away some of that power, you need to compensate, because otherwise it's going to be an underpowered class, which thematically and narratively might be interesting, but from a mechanical perspective, and unfortunately that's what half the game is, from a mechanical perspective, will be difficult to reconcile and might become very frustrating. So there we go. Dariel 11 has a question. Speaking of vampires, I'm making a new character for a Victorian age Vampire the Masquerade game, and I'd like a little help with his backstory. Currently, all I have down is that he was a treasure hunter who found some Incan artifact that he traded for immortality, as he adopted a kid from the town near the site where he recovered the artifact from, but that's about it. Does anyone have any suggestions to improve his backstory? I have a few suggestions straight off the top of my head. What are his relations like with his parents? Are they still alive? Does he like them? Does he want to go back to them? Why did he become a treasure hunter in the first place? How was he making his living before? Why did he trade that Incan artifact for immortality? What is it that he feels he's going to benefit from immortality? Not a lot of people want immortality, as a matter of fact. It is seen as being a curse rather than as a blessing. So why was he doing that? Why did he adopt a kid from the nearby town? Why did he do that? I want that to be explored.
Tell me that. What does the kid feel about him? Does the kid know about his secret? Does he feed on the kid? Does he have to feed? That's more information that I want. I want that to be given to me. What is he going to be doing now? Is he bound to stay in South America where he found this artifact? Can he leave? What are his restrictions? So you can unpack that, explore, expand. Does he have colleagues that he used to work with that are now aging and he is not? Those are the sort of things. Just unpick who, what, why, when, where, and how. Answer those and suddenly your backstory starts to become more interesting. On the channel last week, I think I did retro backstories where you already got your character and you haven't worked out a backstory completely yet. You can always go back and look at that video as well, and that will give you even more inside information. Fire Hazard, I'm glad that you just got here. I hope whatever it was that you didn't hear, you have now got your information on. Otherwise, just repeat that question for me. 5 minutes left until the end of the stream, and I dash off to go and find food because it's lunchtime here in Japan. I want to point out a few things. One, before we go, let me bring up this image, which I did not have prepared earlier because I am idiot. I don't even know where the hell it is. Where the hell is it? It is an announcement of things and stuff, which if you have not heard about, I would hope that you had. Let's do this and do that. So this is an event. If you are in the UK or you are in Europe and feel like you want a holiday to London, the Horde RPG Con is a one-day convention that I have been putting together with World Anvil, our world aggregator partners of choice. On the 2nd of March, I have my visa, I've got my air tickets. He said, did I book the air tickets? Yes, I'm fairly certain I did. So we would love to see you there if you can join us for that. It would be great. That's the 2nd of March. Where is it happening? It's happening in London-ish. We are looking for a venue. We didn't know how many people were going to be participating. So when we opened up options, if you want to join, if you're going to be there and you want to come through, please go and find that event on our Facebook page. There is an RSVP form that you must fill in. That RSVP form is a Google form document. I can probably try and share it with you. I should probably try and share it with you. So that is a form. I'm going to go and look for it now. Where the hell is it? It's here. You get to see my dopey face, which you see all the time anyway. I think it is, the link is this one. I'm going to pop it into the paste. Hopefully it gets approved. And if you are going, this is the link. There it is. Let me go and check that Google didn't block it. Did it come up? I don't know. There's so much chat happening. I can't see. I hope it came up. If not, I'm going to do it in the actual chats of both of them anyway. So there is the link to the form. If you want to come to that, that's there. It did come up in Twitch. That's fantastic. So I know that there are people who've got a hold of me from Germany who want to come through. That's absolutely brilliant. That's wonderful. They've asked me for the venue. The venue we're still looking at. We're looking at about 35 to 40 people attending at the moment. The day itself, we're going to have 2 role-playing sessions running modules that I will have written for the day, as well as I'll be doing some talking and stuff. But primarily, it's going to be about socializing with you guys, socializing with other role players in the London area. As soon as we've locked down a venue, we will make it known, but it will definitely be in London somewhere because that's where I'm going to be based. Now, if you are coming to London specifically for this event, I want to have dinner with you on Friday night. I can't pay for you because London is the most expensive place on planet Earth and possibly, I suspect, in the solar system. But I would love to go to dinner with you if you are in London on that Friday night. Let me know because I know some people are going to come through the night before. Nathan Marcano, thank you for that donation. I do appreciate that. I really do. I really do. So thank you for that. All right, okay. So that is happening in London. Then I will be in the US of A. I will be in the US of A, US from July onwards. Where am I going to be in July? I will be in St. Paul. If you're out that way, come and find me. I will be there for a while. Might go to Los Angeles very briefly, but otherwise I'm on my way to Gen Con, which is the big event that happens every year, 1st of August to the 4th of August. So that will be a lot of fun there as well. I believe if you don't watch his channel yet, if you want reviews on the latest books and things for role-playing, Mr. Taresk from Belgium is also coming through to the London event. So if you do watch his channel, it'll be quite cool to hang out with him as well. He's got lots of life experience. He's a life coach, so a very interesting bloke to chat to. He has been on the channel before for various reasons. Okay, so there we go. I don't see any more questions having come through. I see that there's lots of discussions going on, which is fantastic. That's what we like to see. That's what we like to have happen. And so last question, because there is now 40 seconds left before the stream ends. I do like to keep to time because it kind of gives everyone guidelines and ground lines. 28 people on Twitch. I'm absolutely blown away. 137 on YouTube. This is just phenomenal. And those donations coming through as well is just absolutely amazing. I do appreciate those. I do see that my restream chat has gone down. There we go, it's back again. So there is that. That's coming through. Someone was typing in Japanese. Another 50 experience points for Eric. There we go. Look at you, Eric. He posted up the link for Mr. Taresk on the Twitch channel. So there we go. Someone is posting in Japanese. My Japanese is terrible. I know I've been here for a year, but there are 3 different written forms of Japanese. I'm still learning the one written form of Japanese. So there we are. Vessel of Calamity says, what is your favorite color? My favorite color, I think, without a doubt, categorically, is absolutely, definitely, probably yellow, green, and blue. And red. I like red too. So there we go. Traxar Omega is writing sort of things. It's something. Is that meh? No, is that meh? No, it's not meh. It's na. No, that's not na. That's ba to something. I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to get there. I didn't answer Moment's question. What was Moment's question? I didn't see that in the moment, and now it's gone. I'm looking for it. I don't see them. Oh, Snaps and Paul. I'll have to go. Nerfa Fett. Yes. Come and join us. Corvillian. You guys. There we go. Megan Graustein. This is the last question of the stream today. Says, how would you set up enemies for a war setting? I have 6 level 10 characters. I like many small enemies and a few bosses, but don't know how to balance this idea. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I would look at it from a stacked perspective. Now, I have done some videos on sieges, which is a big war kind of moment. It's an extended war, I should say. So one thing to look at when you're doing these kind of big battles, when you're saying a big war setting, you've got some big bads and you've got some smaller ones, I would have the players have to go through a series of micro adventures in that actual war. They need to go and scout out the location of the enemy siege weapons, for example. Adventure number 1. Adventure number 2 might be, whilst the siege engines are being engaged by the rest of the army's sappers, the PCs have to go and divert a big bad somewhere else. So there we go. Eric, I see that you posted in question from Monema's super chat, and then there's no actual question. Oh, I'll be in a campaign soon with a brand new player whose character is chaotic neutral, love to steal rogue. I don't want to deny his choice, but what advice can I give him to keep him from sliding into chaotic stupid? Oh dear, that is a very good question, and it is very difficult to play with. If the player themselves is not responsible, and it so often happens, and it is oftentimes very, very irritating, I would advise that, I know I did a video on this, it wasn't toxic players, and it wasn't stupid players, it wasn't a dick player, anyway, maybe I need to do another video on it, is stealing all the time when the party can get arrested and you derail the entire operation is stupid playing. There's, as you say, chaotic stupid. It's not the smartest way to go. So it's about telling that player, saying, listen, it's great that your character loves to steal, but your character shouldn't be played as an idiot either. Your character should judge when is there a good moment to actually do this, not to just do it all of the time. So there we go. That's my long and short of it. Monoma asked, I've just answered that. Okay, so there we go. I was just saying thank you in Japanese. Arigato gozaimasu. Yes, arigato gozaimasu. The U is silent. That's thank you a lot in Japanese. And arigato gozaimasu to you too for watching the stream. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Very, very, very thank you for watching the stream. So there you are. Chaotic stupid is the neutral or natural ending point for most characters. It really is Game Master's Vault, as you said. Chaotic stupid. I think I'm actually going to do that. You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring up this list. You can't see it because it's secret. No, it's not. It's not that secret. I'm just going to add it as my GM content list, and I'm going to type in here chaotic stupid. Now, the way that it works, if you don't know chaotic stupid, stupid play, rogues always stealing. If you don't know, you can head on over to our Discord, you can go to our Facebook, you can go to our webpage, you can go basically anywhere where I am except for Twitter. Please don't ask me questions on Twitter because I forget. And there are sections where you can ask questions directly. I add them to the list of topics, and then every week when I'm about to record my topic videos, I randomly roll on the dice to see which topic will be handled for that particular week, unless there's something that needs to be handled straight away. So there we are. Everybody, I thank you so very, very much for being part of this stream, for staying up late for some of you, or exceptionally early for others. I have absolutely enjoyed the barrage of questions and comments that have come through. I really, really have enjoyed that. I was going to play out with music, but apparently my setup didn't work that way. I thought it was, but I didn't. So back to the drawing board on the technology for that. I want to thank our moderators who were around as well, and for everybody who posted up stuff. Eric, you can level up this session, so next time we see you in the Twitch, it'll be Eric, he, him, level 1, if you please, so that you have more power and more hit points and can resist and withstand more damage. For everybody who gifted, who donated, who is rehosting these streams, I thank you. If you share this channel with others, let them know 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when this GM Live sessions will be. Monday evenings is the Broken World Chronicles, which is a live play that I do with 3 amazing performers. So you can join us for that if you like. That's also 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and will now also be live on YouTube. Not on this channel, it's on the GM Sessions channel, which is my other YouTube channel. That will be live, and then we've got on Wednesday Campaign Creator Series, on Thursday Great GM advice, and on Fridays Player Advice, which comes out every single week on the YouTube channel. But then you knew that already because you are a member or follower of the channel. So until next time, as per the request of someone who clearly does not have a sense of music, I will be humming. And I would encourage you all to hum along as well. It doesn't really matter what you're humming. The idea is that we're all just collectively humming as I bring this stream to a conclusion. Thank you very much once again. And we'll see you all next time. Till then, happy gaming. Are you humming? I hope you're humming. They should be humming. And stop humming. Thank you. Goodbye.